From one of Australia's former leading homicide detectives, this is I Catch Killers with Gary Jubelin.
We actually met at his bikie clubhouse. A lot of the wives didn't like the strippers, and because when I first met my ex-husband, I was the stripper, he's the one who answered the door when I got there. Within 7 months, I got pregnant or settling down and having kids, and that's when I realised, like, oh, this is going to be hard because suddenly I stopped farting and he didn't.
I Catch Killers with Gary Jubelin.
In part 2 of my chat with the very funny Nikki Justice, we carried on from where we left off in part 1, when Nikki was telling us about her stripping career. In this part, we talk further about Nikki's life as a wife of a bikie, motherhood, becoming a tattoo artist, and how she found her true self performing as a stand-up comic. Again, this was another interesting chat with a wild woman. Nikki Justice, welcome back.
Yes, good to be here.
Well, part 2. We made it through part 1.
Yeah, we covered a lot. Where are we up to?
I don't know. We could have gone down rabbit holes all the way. So many different and varied stories.
Yeah.
We did leave you performing your first striptease in part 1.
Okay, so this is when I first became a stripper.
Yes.
So I started out just waitressing.
Yep.
And then from there I'd start. So I wasn't a club stripper, so I never worked in a strip club. There was one time where I accidentally worked in a club environment. It was because
we've all lost our clothes accidentally. That happens.
So I thought I was getting booked for a waitressing job.
Yeah.
And but it was at a pop-up strip club inside Sexpo.
Right. Okay.
Because I think they have that over here as
they
well.
have it.
And I thought, because my friend owned the Voodoo Lounge strip club in Perth, which I did used to work at, but as a waitress, just a floor waitress before I started stripping. Yeah. So that was like one of my side hustles. So I just used to do normal waitressing there. And then once I started doing the topless waitressing, because I was friends with her, she asked me if I wanted to work at Sexpo and do a shift there. And I just assumed she meant as the topless or nude waitressing, because that's what I did. And then when I got there, they were like, you're up next, you got to do 15 minutes on the podium. And I was like, with the pole. And I'd never pole danced before. And it's actually hard. There's a lot of skill.
They use it as a gym session, like pole dancing.
And I kind of just thought I gave it a crack. Like I
just swing
tried
around
to,
the pole, did you?
But I didn't know that the pole moved on its own. So when I thought the way they're flipping around is so I kind of just clunkily threw myself around really badly. And I was like, okay, I don't know how to do this. And so I literally just sort of pranced around the podium, apologising to everyone, all the people sitting around the podium and saying, oh my God, this is my first time. I'm so sorry. They were laughing. They thought it was hilarious. And so we were just like, I just walked around, did a couple of bend and snaps. This is why I have a joke about, I was like the Ray Gun of stripping. It was so bad.
Our world famous Olympian breakdancer.
Yeah.
Let's, I don't know if you should describe yourself that way, maybe.
Well,
pick
I think
another
our
Olympian.
moves were on par. Like I distinctly remember doing a bend and snap, which is like the stripper equivalent of doing the sprinkler or something. But everyone was lovely. There was I got my first lap dance from that, so I did a lap dance, which I also didn't know how to do, and I got carpet burn on my knees. But that was my first and only time in a strip club.
Okay.
All my other stripping, so I would do the waitressing jobs, and then from that led to, so I was always at like parties, so it was usually like bucks parties or footy wind-ups and things like that.
Yeah.
And then I would do, so I started doing dance shows. So that was where the stripper puts on a show at the party, but I just did the entry level strip show, so the tamer one.
Right. Okay.
So there was the tamer one was just like where you dance badly for me. Dance badly. There's a couple of signature stripper moves that you get taught, and then most of it was in the sort of game. So you'd have some lollies and. Play with those, and there was the cream. So you do it was called a hot cream strip. So you would get shaving cream, men's shaving cream, and you would put it on their bodies and light it up. And I can't believe there's no health and safety in this industry, and there probably should be, because I don't feel like these men should be at our mercy. Because I remember being taught once and just sent to a job, and this is how you got to do it. And I was like, if I burn this man, we're both like...
I suppose I'd be a bit reluctant to go to the hospital saying, how did you get burnt? Oh, well, a stripper put some cream on me and set it alight.
Yeah.
So,
so that was just, it was like a theatrical thing for a bit of fun. And so that was what I did. And then there was other levels of stripping, but I never did those. But I saw them. There was some people were out there. I've seen some crazy things from strippers like that are trying to like have a point of difference, I guess, and make their show unique.
So how long did that career?
So that was actually quite short-lived, because I came back from America, went straight into it, and it was only, I reckon, maybe 6 or 8 weeks into my little stripper career that I met my ex-husband.
Okay.
And so I continued doing it for maybe 3 or 4 weeks after we met, and then stopped because now I had a boyfriend.
Well, so your parents were right. You need someone to straighten you out.
Yeah.
Okay, tell us about, we touched on it, but tell us about love at first sight when you've gone to the clubhouse, because I would imagine there'd be a bit of reluctance going to a bikie clubhouse.
Like I was pretty wayward at the time, and I was quite reckless. But even for me,
why do you say that, Nikki?
Well, because we didn't go into what I did in America, but I was partying. I was partying way too hard. I was still struggling with my mental health. My mental health hadn't been good pretty much since my teens, and I was quite reckless. I think I had a live fast, die young mentality, and I kind of was like probably doing things to try and make that happen. Yeah. And then I met my ex-husband, and that all stopped for quite a while. Okay. It kind of settled me down, and I behaved myself, and ended up, I guess, had a version of happiness for a while. Even if it wasn't perfect. Relationships, happen. You have some good and bad. Well, exactly. There's always good and bad, and it always starts out good. Yeah, that's how you get sucked in.
So, okay. Well, you're not going to start it if it's bad. No, sometimes I have. But anyway, we'll move on. With the recklessness, you were really live fast, die young type attitude, weren't you? You were going for it. Yeah. And that you put that down to mental health, or just your attitude to life, or?
I actually think I was a lot like my dad. Like my dad was really spontaneous and reckless as well with some of his, decisions. I think it was a mixture of my upbringing and my mental health, which was probably caused by my upbringing, I guess. Yeah. But also, I guess some of it's hereditary. Like both my parents struggled with their mental health a lot. Yeah. But they also had, they didn't have the best childhoods either. Yeah. So as much as, they messed up a bit, they were doing better with us than what they had.
And I think that's important. You can't look back at people that have raised their children the wrong way if they've been raised the same way. Like where do you learn from? You learn from your parents.
I used to. There was a period of especially in my earlier 20s, I used to be quite resentful and mad at my parents. And then as I got older, and you kind of just realise that we're all humans, and they were doing the best they could with what they had. Yeah. And they were, in their own way, they broke cycles because we had a better childhood than what they had. Yeah. And then I'm trying to do the same thing with my kids. I'm trying to give my kids a better life than what I had. But then I've still ended up. They're probably going to still need therapy, but who does? But my kids have a much more stable life than what I had.
I'm sure your kids can come to you and tell you anything. And
I have a really good relationship,
which I think is a good thing to have.
I have a really good relationship with my kids. My kids have probably rarely seen me drink. I have made sure that's the thing I never wanted my kids to experience. I didn't want my kids to be around mum, drunk or so my kids haven't seen me in that state.
I think it's important with kids that, and we're diverging a little bit here, but with kids that parents should be parents first before they become friends. Like you can be friends with your kids, but your parenting has to take the priority. And I see a lot of kids that go off track when their parents are treating them like friends and they're not reining them in. And
I think that's what happened with me is my parents weren't definitely, I didn't have any boundaries. I was sort of maybe some mild ones, I'd do something wrong and they'd be like, oh, you shouldn't do that, but then nothing to
forget about.
Yeah. which I won't be doing with my children. I will be trying to keep my children as young. Like I've got a 14-year-old now, and that was the age where I started misbehaving and mucking up and doing drugs. And my son is so, like, he's just a regular 14-year-old kid and he's quite innocent. And I'd be horrified if he was suddenly doing speed or, you know, so I want to keep him away from that for as long as possible.
Yeah, well, you've got the experience, so you can. It'd be a hard one. It'd be hard to keep it away from.
He's a very sensible kid, though. He's autistic, and he's very black and white, and he's very sensible. And I think he sees people, he's seen people, be drunk or whatever, and he's just like, I don't think I like that.
Okay.
Yeah, like that. So I think he'll probably, like all kids will eventually, go through their experimenting phase or drinking and stuff, but I feel like he's got a good head on his shoulders. I hope.
Fingers crossed. You lose them from, I reckon, from about 13 till they come out the other end at about 18, 19.
Yeah.
And you just got to keep a close watch because they can go either way.
Yeah.
At that informative period of time in their life.
Yeah.
They get the wrong friends and that.
Yeah.
Okay, but we're not saying you've got the wrong friend just because you've met your future husband as you've walked in to do a show at a bikie clubhouse.
Yeah, so I was just going to be waitressing.
Yep.
And we ended up, so he answered the door. So because I wasn't going to take the job at first, but then they rang me back because they were like, are you available? I said yes, and they said it was a clubhouse. So I said no. Then they rang me back and they said, we can't find anyone. And they talked me into it. So I went, he answered the door, and I guess it wasn't what I was expecting. So in my head, because I hadn't been around bikies really, so in my head they were all the bikies that I had been around were like these old, fat, scary looking men, and he wasn't. He was like younger, he was like early 30s, and so I was a bit surprised that it wasn't this big dirty bikie that I was expecting. And we hit it off, and we ended up starting to see each other pretty quickly after that, and then we were living together within a few weeks after that.
Okay, so the Nikki warning signs weren't up or whatever. Well, I suppose what you've been through.
Yeah.
This doesn't seem so strange. But did you consider what the life of a partner and future wife of a bikie would entail?
I don't think I considered it properly until I was already like in it, and I was like, oh, this is my life now. Because when we first met, we were, I was young, single, and didn't have any kids or anything. So we partied a lot when I first met. But then within 7 months, I got pregnant. So all of a sudden, I was instead of us just being young and partying, it was like a serious relationship, and we were settling down and having kids. And that's when I realized, like, oh, this is going to be hard because suddenly I stopped partying and he didn't.
Right. Yeah. Right. And the old adage that the club comes first, how did that play out in the relationship?
I used to hate those words, and you hear it all the time. It is still thrown around a lot, and it's something that gets said a lot, and it would be upsetting, but I think if there was like a family emergency or something, then the club themselves would always want their members to go and sort that emergency out. But some members would take it more seriously than others. Like some members would be like, yeah, club comes first, but I've got to go watch my kids' footy match, or I've got to do this. There were some that would, and then others were just like, no, I've got to, like everything was club. So there was, people dealt with differently. And
how did you find the fellas in the club? How were you treated as a partner of one of the members?
Hit and miss. I would say for the most part, most of them were lovely, but there was definitely some that I despised. There's some members that like would be sleazy, and you'd be like, how can you be sleazy? Like, I'm your friend's wife.
Your brother's
yeah,
so-called.
and that to me I'd be like, so you just all go on about loyalty and respect, and it's like, well, that's not loyal or respectful, and you just kind of have to just laugh it off. He's old, and there was also there was some members who I knew had done some really bad things, and I didn't respect or like that. So it was definitely hard knowing that you were around some people. And it went against your own moral values. You kind of just had to swallow things sometimes and ignore, suppress it, I guess. But there was good and bad. It's like in any any circle of friends or any industry, I think there's good and bads. Like even in the police force, there's good cops and bad cops. Yeah. And there's actually quite a lot of men who, they might be what society deems as a criminal, but they were good family men, and they were really they were nice friends and good people in a moral sense, I guess, apart from the little crimes they might commit here and there.
Yeah. Look, I know, and I've had this discussion. I'm sure some people push back on it, but I see some good. I like to see good in most people. Yeah. That sometimes, and you identified some sleaze bags or committed a certain type of crime, they don't get a chance. But quite often when you sit down, you step away, and talk bikies generally here, step away from the bravado that they have to put on when they're around the club. You can have quite a good conversation, and they've got values that are not that dissimilar to the values that I have. I've seen that, with them.
Yeah.
So what was it about your fella that attracted you to him? Besides, you said he was a hot, good-looking bikie that you didn't expect.
I wouldn't go that far, but I don't know. I guess it was an instant kind of like attraction thing there. But I definitely think at first I thought the bikie thing was exciting, I guess, but that ended up wearing off.
Okay, talk us through that, because I often ask people, why did you join the gang? And they said the excitement part of belonging. You walk into a club and everyone looks at you. You're on your Harleys riding down the highway on a run, that type of stuff. What was the glamour and excitement from a partner's point of view?
Probably it's pretty much the same thing. It was, I don't know. There was obviously the bad boy and the that kind of thing. When they would go on the runs, or if there was a big anytime there was a funeral, there would be hundreds of bikes, and there was something exciting about that, being part of that procession. And I don't know. I don't know. I think a lot of young girls, well, probably not the girls that had good upbringings. But to see something exciting and glamorous in that, it's this exciting underbelly kind of lifestyle. And I think they've glamorized it a little bit as well, seeing, gangsters on TV and things like that. Yeah. It was because I used to love Underbelly, were you part of that as well? Yeah.
Underbelly badness.
Yes. But, so I think it was just just had this idea in my head that it was going to be fun.
Did you like part of the attraction was you being the bad girl too?
Maybe.
Look at me. Yeah, I live outside the norms of society.
Yeah, maybe, but I think it all wore off pretty quickly. Because once I became a mum, I really I think in my teens and early 20s I was quite a little bit lost, and then when I became a mum, I was suddenly it was the first time in my life I never questioned my place in the world, and I was but that's when the sort of shine started to wear off, because I was well, I just want to make this beautiful family, and I want to have a happy family. And I had this idea in my head of what a happy family was going to be like when I had one, or now that I had my own. And I was trying so hard to make it like that, but it was really hard when your partner's a bikie and he wasn't prioritising your family the way that you wanted him to.
You wanted the white picket fence, the three kids, a dog, and that type
and I was
of
trying to sort of force that. And convince myself that I had it maybe. But because for a little while we ended up with a house, we had dogs, and we sort of had it, but it wasn't, the club comes first stuff used to get thrown around a lot because he was not home a lot during for periods of our relationship. So I was doing a lot of the family stuff by myself. And then...
Did you get included in club functions? I know, that they have their runs and different things.
The runs. So the runs was always men only.
Yeah.
But they would always. So their club had. They actually used to put on quite a lot of functions. So they used to do Bindoon Rock, which used to be this huge rock music festival in WA, and then it became the Dirt Drag. So they have every year they do the Bindoon Dirt Drags. It's a huge event. It ended up growing quite big. They have a burnout competition and stuff. So it's quite a big deal. They get a few thousand people come in, and the women would always help out with those kind of things. They also put on a music festival one year. and I ended up getting a job as so I was my job was to deal with all the bands and book bands and deal with them actually leading up to it. But then there's the stage manager of the bands on the day. So whenever there was events and stuff, the women would always be involved in that kind of stuff and the parties and stuff. We'd cook all the food and.
Okay, so for this exciting outlaw lifestyle, it sounds like the local football team getting together.
Yeah, it's very similar. It's a lot like a footy club environment.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
What about kids? Were they included in stuff?
Yeah. So a lot of the guys actually are big on the the club themselves. I think actually were quite. Well, I don't know what all clubs are like, but this club had quite a big family emphasis. I think a lot of the older. I've heard not just. I think I heard some of them say the older members. They messed up quite badly when they were. They had their kids growing up, and so and they probably weren't there for their kids a lot, and a lot of their kids ended up on drugs and ODing, and a lot of them don't have relationships with their kids, and so they ended up having a bit of a family. We used to have family nights, so they'd a monthly thing where each month a different member would be in charge of bringing the food and have a family night where the kids and everyone would all come, and most of their parties would earlier on would be kid friendly. They wouldn't bring the strippers out till later. They would still have the waitresses. So I remember picking my kid up once. So I was working. I was doing a fringe show. I was in a cabaret show, and I came. I had to leave my kids with my ex-husband, and they had some event on at the clubhouse, and so I went to the show. I came back, and I've walked into the clubhouse, and my little 2-3-year-old son, I think he was 2, was being bounced on the knee of this stripper, and she had her boobs out, and her boobs were just bouncing up and down, and she's got my kid, and my kid's just like,
oh, this is cool. Different.
Family orientated, but still a little bit inappropriate.
Yeah. What about where the wives or partners, was there jealousy with the other girls that hang around with the clubs? Yeah,
for sure. So the wives don't.
Were you bitchy?
A lot of the wives didn't like the strippers, and because when I first met my ex-husband, I was the stripper. Yeah. So I think it took a while for them to warm up to me because they saw me as the enemy, I guess.
So there was a bit of bitchiness there.
Oh yeah, there's a lot of bitchiness. There's a lot of bitchiness. The moles. That's one of the nicknames for them. The moles.
The moles.
Bikie moles.
Yeah.
But moles is more the derogatory term.
And there was a status of being the partner or
the
wife.
Yeah. So there's definitely there's strippers, and then there's hang-arounds. They call them onions. So onions are the girls that will sleep with the guys, but they're just sleeping with everyone. They don't really belong to any particular person. They just get sort of passed around. And then there's girlfriends and then wives, or wives and girlfriends are the same category, I guess. But there was definitely a hierarchy of the moles, and there were certainly some women that would not give you the time and day until you'd earned your place here, and you had to be a part of this because we see people come and go all the time, and you might not be here that long, and so some of them were really fucking mean.
Yeah. Did some try to mentor you once they've accepted you?
No, I wouldn't say mentor me, but I definitely, because I was I have no filter and I don't hold back, and so I got told off a few times for being out of place and I shouldn't be saying this, especially when I was new. But I'm just well, you're just a person to me, and I'm going to treat you the way I treat any person. And if you're being a dick, I'm gonna be like, hey, don't do that, because this a woman. One of the women was mean to my friend at my birthday party, but she was a proper wife that had been around for 10 years, and she was really rude to my friend, so I sort of called her out on it, and I was but I did it politely as well. And then I got told off I shouldn't do that because she's been around for so long. I'm like, no, but she's being an asshole. And I don't care how long anyone's been around. If you're being an asshole, I should be allowed to say, hey, don't do that.
So the structures and rules that they have in place also sort of filter across to the women. And that,
I guess so.
Because I'm not saying I'm sitting here laughing at bikies, but we're rebels, we're going to do this, piss, and I'm not talking about the rebel gang, I'm just saying rebels, we're going to rebel against society, and then you read all the rules that you've got to abide by, and you think, Jesus.
Yeah, no, I've laughed at that as well. It's like you're meant to be, you don't want authority, but then there's a lot of authority. But every club's different. So the Coffin Cheaters don't have a formal hierarchy at all. Yeah. They might have, I don't know if they did like when they first started back in the day, but they got rid of it. So they don't have a president or like people have their roles and stuff. I think there's people, it doesn't go, it's like unsaid, but there's definitely people who probably think they're in charge and are treated like they're in charge. Right, but it's not, there's no official president or anything like that.
Did you get a sense on the functions where they were on the piss and everything else? Did you get the sense of menace in the air all the time? Because it's a...
Yeah, like there was definitely, so...
like a family Christmas, the family time at Christmas is always
like almost every party would end with someone getting punched.
Right,
yeah.
Okay.
So I was always like nervous about bringing outsiders in, like to come to a party, because you'd just be like, my brother used to hang around, and I was always worried that he'd be the one who'd end up getting punched into.
Stupid.
Because and also sometimes like some of these members are just being dickheads, like because it's their domain and they can do what they want. So sometimes someone might be out of line and that's why they get punched. Sometimes they're getting punched purely because a member wants to.
Yeah.
And they can't really do anything about it.
Yeah.
I didn't like that.
No, I wouldn't imagine it's a very relaxing atmosphere.
Well, I think, it was a very different environment when you were there sober or when you were there partying. Because if I was partying, it was fun. If I was there sober, it was stressful. Yeah.
Okay. Did you ever start any problems?
Oh, definitely. I wouldn't say I used to. I think I would have said I didn't start things, but if someone started something with me, I was quite feisty and boisterous as well.
Yeah. That's nothing. Yeah. I don't think that would have worked.
I slapped a stripper with a thong once, like a foot thong.
Oh,
she stole it. She stole my thong, so I slapped her with it. But she started it.
I'm sure you were in the right. I'm sure the club would have backed you 100%.
Oh, they did.
How dare she steal your thong, a foot thong? We're podcast, so people mightn't see.
Well, just in case you got any American listeners, or because a thong to them is the G-string.
Yeah. Okay. Tattoos. When did you start delving into tattoos?
So
not only on your body, but also a tattoo artist.
Yeah, so I was always into tattoos, like even before I met my ex-husband, because the tattoo and bikie world are quite linked. But I got my first tattoo. Oh, actually, no, my first tattoo was a little one, but then my second tattoo I got was a big one. So I got my whole back tattooed for my second or third tattoo. I think I got two little ones in Bali and then my big one.
All in Nikki.
And so, I've been, I think you should put more thought into your tattoos, because I don't like a lot of my tattoos now. It's not like I don't care that much. Like I just think, we're in this skin suit and we're all gonna age, and I don't think it matters too much. But in hindsight, I would choose differently, or even some of them I just wouldn't get at all.
Do you care to offer advice on the ones that you don't like?
Well, so tattoos are like fashion, and there's trends and trends change, and so now what was cool, 20 years ago makes you look old.
Age you.
Yeah. And so, I think my sleeve, I think my sleeve is fine. It's nice, but I think it's quite dated.
Yeah.
So there's that. I think there's trends that go around that people are going to regret, like because I became a tattoo artist.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of these, girls that didn't have any tattoos and now they're covered in these little tiny fine line ones, but like everywhere. They're going to hate those. They're going to, going to spread as they get older, and they're going to go and spend thousands of dollars and a lot of pain getting them lasered. So I do think a little bit more thought should be put into your tattoos, and that's just coming from someone who regrets a lot of them.
So what would you recommend to someone getting a tattoo? And I suppose it depends stage of life and all that.
Yeah.
But what's the type of cautionary tale you would say?
Don't do it impulsively. Is because most of mine were chosen on impulse or like a last minute sort of
night out.
And I think I get decision paralysis, so I would be like, I don't know what to. Oh, fine, I'll just get that, and then I'll be like, I wish I got, But I also don't think it's that deep. I don't think it's a big deal, even if I don't necessarily like all of my tattoos, but I also am like,
Yeah.
I don't care that
You've
much.
got the butterfly on your neck.
Yeah, so this is one of the ones I regret. This is going to be the first one I laser. So I am planning.
When did you get that, and what were you?
So when I got this, so I became a tattoo. I was still in a tattoo apprentice, and at that point, like I'd started doing comedy, but I was very new to comedy, and I never really at that point didn't picture myself being able to do it full time like I am now. So at the time, I was a tattoo apprentice, and I thought that was going to be my future. So I was like, well, I might as well just cover myself in more tattoos, and so I got this one, and I was kind of talked into it, and this is the first one I'll laser because it's actually not a bad tattoo, but it is slightly. It's slightly tilted on the wrong angle.
Yeah,
you can see it.
Yeah,
it's not straight. And we had an argument over this during the placement of the tattoo. Because he was putting it on my neck, and I was like, oh, it's not straight. Can we change it? And he got mad at me because I was the apprentice, and he was like, don't question me. I'm like, but it's not straight. And then so we got someone else involved, and you could tell he didn't want to question him either. And he was trying to be he's like, oh, I can sort of see what Nikki's saying, but, he's also right. It's not that big a deal. I'm like, it's my neck. It'll always be seen. Yeah. And so he moved it. But they ended up pretty much in the same spot. And so then it was like, do you want it or not? And I was like, oh, fine, just do it. And I regret saying that. I should have either made him change it and move it again or not done it. But I just went through with it, and I regretted it ever since because it annoys me that it's on the piss a bit. And I think it was the fact that it was not a good day. We didn't get along. We were arguing. And so I would like it gone.
Okay, just bad memories. And
he was a dick. Right. I don't need any memories.
Get rid of him.
He's like the most embarrassing blip on my relationship history.
I won't. No, I won't. Can't give the guy a poor chance of response, so I won't delve into it.
No, we don't need to go into it.
Okay. The artistry. Were you into art?
Yeah. So I always was into art, and so it was actually when I was in America because I've always loved drawing.
God, we're going to find out what happened in America.
Well, it was while I was over there that I started drawing again. I hadn't drawn since like my earlier teens. It'd been a while since I'd put pencil to paper. So I was doing a little bit of drawing over there, and I was like, okay, when I get back, I'm going to try and become a tattoo artist. Then I met my ex-husband, and obviously there's a lot of crossover with bikie tattoo shops and bikies. So I was like, oh, that'll be easy to get a job. But the reality of a tattoo apprenticeship is very long hours, and because I'd started a family, that my ex-husband didn't really want me spending that much time in an apprenticeship. So it was always like, one day, and then it never happened. But I still kept, so I studied art for a little while. So so after we got married and I'd had a kid, I went back to work, and that's when I started working in project management. For a construction company, and it was while I was there I started studying. I was trying to get into law. I've studied a lot, so there's many jobs as I had. I've probably studied just as many degrees and then never finished. But the very first one I ever studied was security terrorism and counterterrorism. Oh, right, and then I quit when I realised the only outcome of this is to become a cop.
Well, in hindsight, I look back and go, maybe I shouldn't have been a cop. But
I signed up to that one because in my silly little head, I wanted to be a spy. I was like, I want to become like a secret agent spy because I watched some spy movies and thought it was cool. And I was like, how do I become one? Like I wanted to be an assassin or something. Yeah. So I signed up for that degree.
Spies are cool, and I keep talking about Jack Beaumont.
If you're out there, you need one. I'll still do it. Good cover, comedian. No one will pick it.
But what was law even crossing your mind with law?
Well, I think because being around a lot of crime and they needed lawyers all the time. This could be quite lucrative for me, and I could also help out a lot. But I actually really enjoyed studying law. So one of my ex-husband's or the club's lawyers, I got along with her quite well, and and she was their criminal lawyer. Yeah. And I just had a big interest in it, and I actually did really well. So I was studying. I had to sign up first for a different degree to get into law, but I only had to finish 4 units and then I could have got in. Yeah. But I was able to do 2 electives in law, and I got high distinctions on both. Thank you very much. And I really enjoyed it.
Easy subject.
Well, because despite as crazy as I sound, I was always a nerd at school. Before I went off the rails, I was a nerd. I was always top of my class in primary school before I started going off the rails in high school. But I actually, I was always a bookworm, and I loved studying. So I would study last minute. So I would stay up all night the night before. It would be due at 8 a.m. and I'd stay up all night and I'd like just get this rush and I'd just do my assignment and it would be great. So my written assignments I'd always nail. So I'd always get like top marks for those. Exams where I had to remember stuff, that's where I struggled.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, you've had a look at a lot of different stuff.
Yeah. But then, so I digressed. We were talking about art. So I was studying law and I was going to be a lawyer. I wanted to be a criminal lawyer, obviously. And then, and that was when my dad passed away. And it was when my dad passed away that I gave up on that because I decided instead I would follow my heart and be a hippie and do art. And and so I changed to an arts degree. Yeah. And I did maybe 4-5 units of an arts degree before I gave up on that as well because I was like, I don't feel like I need to spend 20 grand to learn how to do art. I'll just watch it on YouTube.
You can pick it up. With your father dying, and it's always a watershed moment, but that's it changed your outlook on life? What
Huge.
Was
so the reason... So my dad passed away 2012. So by then I had been married for 1 year and with my ex for almost 3 years, 2.5, 3 years. So by then I had a toddler, and my dad and I were quite close, but my parents, like I said, they got on the straight and narrow pretty much after the circus for quite some time. They were doing quite well. They both ended up having good jobs. They made this like new life for themselves and they'd really settled down. And then, my dad was definitely still a dabbler, so he used to party with us at the club. Like I think he was quite enamoured by the bikie thing. Mum would always joke at
last my daughter's finally done well.
Mum used to say, I think Dad always wanted to be a bikie, and he was in a Christian biker group when. When I was a kid, he joined a Christian biker group called the God Squad.
The God Squad. Yeah, I'd seen that.
Squad.
I saw them get around.
Yeah. So I think it was something he probably would have liked to have done, and he was probably around it a bit.
I'm glad you made your dad proud.
Yeah, I did. Yeah. And so he used to party with us, and occasionally, and so I actually have like some great memories of doing acid with my dad. Which I'm glad I have those memories because, you laugh nonstop and you have silly, deep conversations when you're high that you wouldn't have when you're straight. So I've had some good memories.
Very good or very bad.
Well, yeah, but for me it went good, and I'm glad I have those memories with my dad. And then so my dad. He still partied a little bit, but he had a good job. He was mostly living quite stably, and then he had an accident at work, which meant he could no longer work. Right. And I think that was his downfall. So idle hands became the devil's playground, and he got back into drugs quite heavily, quite quickly. Oh, that's sad. And then he went downhill really fast after. So I think he had the accident in October, and it was definitely still leading up to the accident. There was maybe some problems. Yeah. He was maybe dabbling a little bit too much sometimes because he was FIFO. So it was when he'd come home. But then the accident just meant he had nothing to stop him from, because usually he would have to, you've got to go to work, you've got to not take drugs because you've got to get drug tested. And then as soon as that was gone, he just... No routine. Yeah, so by December, things got like really bad. There was so many like messy family problems. December 2012, he ended up taking his own life, which sucked. We had a complicated relationship. We were close, but I also was, at the time, I was not very happy with him. Like I was telling him he needs to pull his head in. And I wanted him to pull his head in. Like he was even for the bikies, he was doing too much because my ex-husband's club sort of had a rule about meth heads and stuff like that. They didn't associate with them, and you weren't allowed to do it. Their associates weren't allowed to do it. And I think my dad was on thin ice, like with my ex-husband as well, because he knew what he was doing. And so we did have many chats. Like I think we spoke a few days before he did it, and he knew he was struggling, and he told me he was struggling mentally. And we sort of thought it was in part because of his job, but he was also he wasn't perfect before that. But yeah, we had a big chat about everything because there'd been a big family argument, and I had to go over there to try and settle it down and sort it out. And so we had a huge chat a few days before he died, and the end of the chat, like I remember him bringing up suicide or having suicidal thoughts, and and because I have also had suicidal thoughts, like we talked, we have these thoughts sometimes, but we'll never do that to each other. Because we actually had a family friend whose son committed suicide a few years earlier, and we saw like just how devastating it was. And so because that was only quite recent as well, I thought we left the conversation on the same page that, we get these thoughts sometimes, but we'll never do that to each other. We love each other and, always be here for you, blah, blah, blah. And then a few days later, he was gone.
Done it. Yeah, I can see why that's painful for you.
Yeah, so it definitely sucked, but it also was the catalyst for changing my life, because that was it was a long process, but that was when so losing my dad is what sort of put me on a path of wanting to have a better life, I guess, and I became a little bit spiritual during that time as well, and I didn't want to party, and I didn't want that lifestyle anymore. And it also, I think, because I became a little bit spiritual and started focus, and I think I was trying to heal myself from losing him, but what it ended up doing was also heal myself and make me realize I don't want to be in this situation anymore, where I wasn't in a happy relationship, and I didn't like the boundaries that were always being crossed and stuff. So eventually, that's what led to me not wanting to be married anymore, and so all these things, a domino effect. Yeah. But losing my dad was awful and hard, but it also taught me a lot and made me grow a lot as a person. Yeah,
well, you still feel like a kid when you've got your dad to sound things past, and once they're gone, it makes you reflect.
Yeah.
So, okay, we've gone through that. The relationship, 8 years you were married. Mm-hmm. Separation, that would be, well, any separation's hard. Is it hard separating from a bikie when you're married?
It was.
Do you have to get approval from the club, or?
No, the club's not involved in it in any way, really. But it was a really messy breakup. It was quite difficult, and it was quite hostile as well. It was up there with one of the worst things I've been through. Like losing my dad and that initial breakup. It was pretty brutal. And it took a long time for things to settle down, but eventually they did. And now, fortunately, we actually get along, and we co-parent nicely, and the kids, get to see both parents at functions and events, and we've even been on holidays together and stuff.
Oh,
so
full credit.
Yeah,
to that is 100% the way to go.
And the difference it made on my kids, like once we started getting along, you could see it was huge. So I think that's really important for families and for kids to see their parents getting along, and you have to forgive things that people don't say sorry for.
You gotta suck it in.
Yeah,
you really do, for the sake of the kids, if you can. And
also in hindsight, I didn't handle everything perfectly either. No one's faultless.
No, I don't think anyone does. But if you can give that priority to the kids, so congratulations to both of you for
we're very lucky to be in the situation we are now.
So this whole life that you've lived is just to give you stories so you could be a stand-up comedian.
Well,
you've been working undercover all these years.
It kind of made it worth it, doesn't it? At least because I've always had these crazy stories, but like just sitting around, having a drink with someone and like, oh wow, but now I actually have a platform to tell them and make them into jokes. And
so how'd you find your way there, doing stand-up comedy?
So
because you've tried a lot of things.
Yeah. So after I left my ex-husband, it was 2021 when I started stand-up. So by 2021, I'd gone back to stripping as soon as we broke up, because we had a business together, but closed it down. I started closing the business, so I knew we were going to break up before he knew, but he probably knew as well, because he was also. We were both making moves. He got a new girlfriend. I closed down our business.
It's like a game of chess.
So I think we both knew we were on the rocks, and so. My therapist had actually suggested closing the business down and starting to get my ducks in a row, because I talked about wanting to leave. And then, so we had a memorial business. We used to make headstones and photo engraved memorials and stuff. So I went back to stripping pretty much as soon as I became a single mum, because I suddenly needed income, and it was the easiest and quickest thing I knew I could get straight back into. And fortunately, I also lost a lot of, because I'd only just had a baby, but I lost a lot of baby weight because I going through a heartbreak does wonders for the figure.
I've seen that, the breakup diet.
Yeah, everyone was like, you look great. I'm like, yeah, I got my heart stomped on.
training so much.
So I went back to stripping. So I was still stripping when I started comedy, and I think it was one of the lockdowns had sort of triggered it. So we were in a lockdown, and I'd posted like a parody song making fun of my failures. So it was to the sound of silence, but I called it the sound of failure, and it was about my failed marriage and my failed OnlyFans and my failed because the OnlyFans didn't actually end up happening. My joke was that I only had one fan. He was my only fan. Anyway, so I made up this silly little thing, and I was always posting silly stuff on my stories. And a comedian, because I'd been to a few comedy shows, and a comedian followed me, and he commented on one of my things, #comedian. And I think that's what planted the seed. And then not long after that, the seed had sort of been planted, and then I just made that parody that people thought was funny. And so I started like thinking, oh, maybe I could do some jokes. And then they kind of just came to me naturally. Like I remember being in the bathroom doing my makeup, and then I just started laughing at my thought process, and I was like just reliving stories, but I was making them a bit funnier and throwing on a punchline. And so I recorded myself. I pretended I had an audience. I recorded myself doing a couple of these little ideas in my head, and I sent them to some friends, and I was like, is this funny? And look, they were probably just being nice to me, but they said yes. And so I was like, fuck it, I'm gonna do a open mic. And I got onto an open mic like a week after that. And I was really fortunate because I got onto one of the best open mics in Perth. So the best club in Perth is the Comedy Lounge, and they used to have a Wednesday open mic night. And they stopped doing it like about 2 weeks after I got on. So I was quite lucky. I got a really good gig for my first one, and it went quite well. And in hindsight, I have watched that video. It is so cringe. It is so bad. The audience was laughing, but also, a good chunk of the audience were my friends. So I had like a little support. I had a support crew. I was also a little bit high. I had my friend who I hadn't seen in years. It was just this chick who saw that I posted about doing it, and she came along. And I hadn't seen her in like 8 years, and she had mushrooms in her bag. And this is like, because I was on in the second half, and so we were just watching the first half, and she's like, oh, I've got some mushrooms, do you want a mushroom? And I was like, oh, okay. So I just had one little one, not enough to like trip balls, but enough to make me laugh at my own jokes. I thought it was hilarious. And so I was on stage, and it gave me confidence, I guess. So I feel like I'm glad I had the mushroom, because it might have gone very differently. Yeah.
What you just said there, if you got confidence, you're up there.
I felt good.
There's nothing worse than someone on stage that's feeling
and
awkward.
Then I, because I do struggle a lot with anxiety and nervousness, and sometimes it does come through on stage. I get the shakes. So like sometimes I can calm myself down enough to control what's coming out of my mouth, but there'll be like physical signs. Like sometimes my hand will be shaking, and the hand I'm like, oh, fine, people notice it, but it's not that big a deal. If my leg starts shaking, I'm fucked, because it's all so obvious. That sucks but that hasn't happened in a long time, touch wood. But the handshake, I get the handshake sometimes.
But you're as good as, without putting pressure on you, you're good as your last performance. Like if you're doing stand-up comedy, you're out there, this crowd, they come to pay to see you or whatever. Yeah, you're always feeling like you're trying to get good enough, and then when you finally feel like you're good enough, you do another gig after, and you're like, oh, fuck. Because my show at Perth Fringe World this year, I won Best Comedy, and I thought that was my moment. I was like, oh, now I'm good enough. And then I went to the next festival, and it didn't do as well. Like, it was just harder. And I was like, oh, I'm still not. I was like, well, I think you've always got to look for that improvement. Like, never be satisfied.
100%.
Because if I think you went out there without the nerves, you're going to crash and
for sure. And I'm actually excited knowing what I know now. So when I first started comedy, everyone would say, oh, you got to do it for at least 3 years before before you're actually any good. And I was like, I'll be fine. And they were so right. It takes years to develop. And there's a few exceptions to the rule who take off quickly, like Andrew.
We'll talk about Andrew later.
He is an exception to the rule, but most people do have to. And so even though I know I've got heaps of room for improvement, and I always feeling like I'm not quite good enough, but I know I'm doing pretty well for where I'm at and how long I've been doing comedy, and I'm excited to see where I'm at in another 3 years, 4 years, 5 years, because you can only keep getting better. The more stage time you get, the better you get.
I imagine like stage presence is crucial. Like you've got to have that. Your jokes can be funny, but if you're not delivering at the time in them,
and I can feel the difference. Sometimes you just have a set and you're just like, that was really, like, you just felt really present and grounded, and it was like a really flowy set instead of just reciting things. And I know that eventually that'll come naturally and it will happen all the time, whereas now it's like I'm still battling with my nerves a lot.
Do you go out there with and I'm curious because I think I can understand the challenge of getting up there and trying to make people laugh. Do you go out there and know your act verbatim, like the timings and all that, or do you go out there and you've got a rough idea and then you look at the audience and go, okay, this is working, that's not? How do you prepare?
So when you're first writing new material, it's more, well, for me, it's more of an idea. Like I'll sometimes try and write it out, but often it'll just be like, I've got this idea, and sometimes it's better to go. You've got to go to open mics. You don't, do this when there's a good gig, but so you kind of just work it out, and you'll say it the first time and you're like, okay, this bit worked, this bit didn't, and you just have to keep going to open mics, risking that it's going to not work and bomb until you get it right. And then once you get it right, you can change it up a little bit sometimes, and sometimes things will happen naturally on the spot. So sometimes even though I've got my set sort of verbatim, a new thought will pop in, or something might have happened that night that you can call back to and work it in. And so it does sort of become a little bit fluid, but you sort of know what you're going to say. That's
a real talent, but isn't it? Going out there with the confidence that you know you've got something that can become fluid. And I'm going to nail it. Now is my time.
Yeah.
And nail it. What's your big crash and burn story? Have you had one?
Story. I've definitely bombed. We've all bombed. I've got a very bad memory, and it's probably partly from ADD, partly from all the drugs I took when I was younger. But my memory's really bad, and so if something throws me off on stage, it's really hard for me to find my way back to where I was. And there was only one time, but I couldn't remember. I just could not remember where I was. I couldn't remember what to do next. I just went blank, like complete mental blank. And I get mental blanks in life a lot, but on stage, it was the first time it happened where I went blank and I just couldn't dig myself out. And because normally you have a mental blank and then you might delay things a little bit without the audience really knowing, and then you will find a way out of it. But this time I just couldn't, and I had to literally just say, I've gone blank. I don't remember what I was saying, and it was so awkward. And it was at a gig where I was quite nervous. I think that was probably partly why I had a mental blank. I was really nervous because it was like a sea of older people, and I thought, I'm a lot for these. My stuff's going to be a lot for these people. Yeah. So I was really nervous already. And that was brutal. I did end up continuing, so I eventually changed tack, remembered a joke that I could tell, and went on with it. But because it just ruined my set, because I was like, I was partway through a joke, couldn't finish it, and then had to do this awkward. That sucked.
Yeah, I've had that moment once, and it was terrifying. And I was doing a live show, and I had a monologue to 20, 30 minutes. And I'm just there, and the lights were it was Melbourne, lights were too low or whatever, and I was like a deer in the spotlight.
Yeah, you do get a bit
And as you described that's exactly, who am I? What? It just went blank, and then sort of regathered. But it sticks with your mind for the rest of the time. So
it's always been my worst fear to go blank, and then it happened. But I think what I like to say is when people are afraid of things, because one of my mottos is feel the fear and do it anyway. And when the worst happens, at the end of the day, it's actually not that bad. Like it sucked. It was embarrassing. Those people probably think I suck, and I don't know if ever see me again, and they probably think, oh, she's terrible. But that's the worst of it. And then you can go on and have a really good gig, and I think everyone's had a bad gig as well. I don't think you've done comedy properly if you haven't had a bad gig.
And I would imagine with it, it's about, and you said you had to go to the open mics, and it's about paying your dues, isn't it? It's about taking those knocks and getting those laughs and getting the feel, getting the rhythm and all that. I just think it's fascinating. I think it's a real challenging career, and you put yourself out there.
Yeah.
It'd be more confronting than stripping, I think.
Oh, yeah. Stripping was way easier.
Yeah. So with the woke society today, how do you navigate the way through there? Because sometimes I always laugh at people. It's probably the wrong way to say it, but when people go to a stand-up comic that's there to shock you, and then they complain that the comic has said something that's offensive, or someone takes offence to it, how do you navigate your way through the...
I generally, if I come up with a joke that I think is funny, but I know it might be a little bit offensive, I'll still try it. And sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. Like, I have one joke that I got rid of because I was like, okay, it is funny. And most people do laugh, but then a lot of people are like, you shouldn't say that. And I'll probably still pull it out. If I can tell we're in a kind of crowd that will be okay with it, I'll probably still do it. If we're in like a big rowdy, pub kind of crowd where they're full of bogans, they would love it.
Just a way of getting through. Like, some could say you've had a traumatic life in different things that's happened, but to be able to laugh, doesn't that make a difference?
Yeah.
Like, you're talking about your childhood. Others could be saying, "Oh, my parents did this," and hide behind that. You embrace it, deal with it. Yeah. And take some humour from it.
Yeah, well, I think, these are my own life stories, and we laugh at our traumas and our misfortunes all the time. I think that's a human thing to do.
I keep it up, because I think I know through time in homicide, and not just from the policing point of view, the victim's point of views and that, you got to find some brightness in the darkness. Like, the world's dark enough, so let's have a laugh at it. Like a lot of your jokes, I would imagine, are laughing at your own expense. Yeah. So that's a good attitude. Speaking of laughing at own expenses, that I'm not sure if to put it in the love category, but you are seeing a person that's known to I Catch Killers.
Yes.
Andrew Hamilton, are we allowed to mention his name?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay, Andrew Hamilton, who's appeared on this podcast, and has, people might remember him as the man that got locked up for selling mushrooms. And he also hosted our Christmas special last year, which was quite funny. He turned the microphones on me. I just want to ask you a question without putting shit on Andrew. Okay. He told me what I thought was one of the funniest arrest stories, and I've heard a lot, seen a lot, where he was on the back of a 3-day bender, and the cops have knocked on the door. They've come in. He's run up the stairs to get rid of his stash, and was complaining about how long it takes to flush stuff down the toilet when the cops are running up the stairs. And then Andrew, in his drug-fucked mind at that point in time, decided to hide behind the door like a little kid playing hide and seek. And when the cop came in, Andrew claims, and we haven't been able to verify this, that the cop
have you tried?
knocked him to the ground and called him a fat fuck with a small penis.
Yeah.
Should Andrew sue the police over that, or is it... Because part of the defence is, well, it's true.
Look, some people are growers, not showers. I'll leave it at that.
Leave it at that. Well, look, I reckon you two together would be a hilarious combination, and thank you for coming on here and sharing your stories.
No, thank you for having me.
It's been fascinating.
I'm going down memory lane.
I wasn't sure where or how to prepare, and I think we've discussed things on I Catch Killers today that we'll probably never discuss again. But it's all about having a bit of fun. Yeah. All the best for your future. For people that want to see your act, where can they find out what you're doing?
So I'm touring at the moment. I'm always adding new tour dates. So if you just follow me Instagram or Facebook, so Nikki Justice Comedy on Instagram, or Facebook, also Nikki Justice Comedy. Yeah.
Good stuff. Thanks, Nikki.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.